We are live. You're watching the Merge Marketing Podcast. You're listening to the Merge Marketing Podcast. This is episode 192. And in this episode, we're going to talk about B2B social media marketing and why it doesn't have to suck. And my guest on this show is Anthony. I met Anthony in Barcelona, where we were speaking together at the International Social Summit. Earlier this year. Great event, but great opportunity to connect with you over a couple cocktails. Well, Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay. It was like amazing because it was just two Canadians traveling to Barcelona to meet, which is just a perfect way for Canadians to meet.
Right. And you're a Canadian, yet you're living in the UK.
Yes. I was actually born in Hong Kong as well, so I'm doing the Commonwealth tour. Next stop,
Nice.
I think, is Australia. So let's go.
Nice. And do you have any aspirations of coming back home to Canada, or is Canada even home anymore?
Touchy subject.
Yeah.
Listen, when the Raptors win another championship, I'll come home.
Boom. There you go. Awesome. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But anywho, I think we're going to dive into some awesome topics today around B2B marketing because, I get the question all the time. Anytime I talk to a B2B lead, it's like, and for those that don't know B2B, it's business to business lead. So business to business is very like social media, for the most part, to create engaging content. They say that the content needs to be sexy, and it sometimes can be tough to create sexy content when you're a B2B business, right? However, we're going to debunk that myth today in this conversation. At least I hope so. But maybe we could start, Anthony, by you giving us a bit of background on your journey into B2B marketing.
Yeah, actually, it all, I moved from Canada to the UK. And in Canada, I actually did print marketing, if you believe this or not. And when I moved to the UK, when I was looking over job ads, it was all about digital marketing at the point. And so I kind of got myself into it. Started off with SEO copywriting, then got into social media. And in that journey, I did mostly kind of B2C brands, stuff like Just Eat, which I think is called Skip the Dishes in Canada, and Pret a Manger, which doesn't actually exist in Canada. However, it does show up in New York, so you might know the brand. But they're like a more upscale Tim Hortons, if you will, of UK, just as beloved of a brand. And yeah, I also did B2B brands as well, but mostly B2C brands. And it's this kind of, I fell in love with the medium because you can connect directly to your customers, or if you're a charity, your supporters, through this medium. And it's an honest, authentic medium where things that are overproduced are not as celebrated as something that's genuine. So that's why I love it. And yeah, I back at Just Eat and Pret, when I do work on Instagram or on Facebook was still a thing, but we looked for content that entertained and that really understood the emotions, and how the customer looked at us. And so when I started my own business, I reflected on the B2B brands, and it doesn't seem to have the same perspective. It seems that we being B2B have a status quo of kind of putting out content the same way we've been doing it for 10 plus years. I mean, I say 10 years because my first B2B gig was 10 years ago, but nothing's changed in those 10 years. And so the way that we think we are effectively talking to our customers is actually not effective at all. You can see it in how people engage with your brand's kind of LinkedIn content. You can see, there's pages with hundreds and thousands of likes, or followers, sorry. And in the content, there's maybe 50 likes, and in those 50 likes, 80% of it is staff members. So it's clearly not reaching the people. Yeah, or family. Mom and dad accounts for like 90% of content engagement. But that if I was in B2B, or if I was back in B2C, that'd be a red flag, right? My job might be on the line, but in B2B, it seems like a kind of accepted status quo. And I feel like there's such a missed opportunity. So that's what, that's where I'm kind of putting my business now is to help B2B companies with that B2C experience I've got.
So, how can a B2B business really effectively leverage social media as an outlet for them to actually potentially grow their business?
I mean, first, I think we need to recognize that this content isn't for us. We're not writing to make ourselves feel better. We already know how hot we are. It's cool. We don't need to tell ourselves all the time. What we need to do is connect that hotness with the customer, right? With what they feel, what their needs are, how we're going to solve their problems, and how they are, where they are emotionally, possibly, with the problems that they have. And if you connect that through your content, you're going to see a lot more engagement with it, because now you're talking about them and how their problems are being solved and how you can be there for them, rather than, hey, look at me, I'm at trade show X, come see me at X. Great, but how does that benefit me? I don't know, right? So I think the number one thing that B2B companies need to think about is how to flip that perspective in their content, and how to create content for the audience rather than for themselves.
100%. And I think a lot of B2B businesses can't be fixated on that vanity number of likes, because it's really not relevant at all. What's relevant is a small pocket or subset of people that you can speak directly to and have your message resonate with them, which is essentially what we're talking about here, right, Anthony?
Absolutely. I think I feel like a lot of times I see a lot of WhatsApp messages. Hey guys, could you help me like this post? My boss really wants 100 likes. It's like, that's great that you get 100 likes, but if it's not genuine, that's not true engagement, and it's not going to all that effort that you put into that content is not reaching to people you need it to reach. So that number, it becomes vanity. It's not vanity when that number comes organically from your audience, and you start seeing comments from prospects and from people in your industry start discussing things that are important from that post. That's not vanity. That's actually then becomes a signal that your content is resonating with them.
Let's talk about the opportunities that B2B businesses have with social media. What are some of the low hanging fruit opportunities that you see that B2B businesses should be taking advantage of?
Man, you know what B2B businesses are great at? Long content. We are amazing at that. We love white papers and blogs, podcasts, webinars. All these things are wonderful, and all these things bring so much value to your customers and your prospects, because it was created by an expert that solves a problem. That's great. But what's missing is a gap, is kind of like a bridge between that knowledge that sits in your long form content and a way to storytell in short form, so that it becomes digestible on social media. We're not talking about like, hey, let's just rip like, this chunk of podcast, let's just throw it onto the internet. We're talking about recontextualizing that piece of content so that it becomes exciting to watch on LinkedIn or on TikTok or on Instagram. And when we're able to do that, I think the status quo will start breaking down, because the status quo only exists because I think businesses don't understand the impact that can have on their business. But once you see like your prospects start commenting on your posts instead of just the regular staff members, I've often see a lot of my clients kind of just it's like a light bulb moment where they're like, oh, this is cool, let's do more of this.
So, in terms of the platforms, are there certain platforms you prefer over others for posting your social media content to, or where a B2B business owner or director or marketing manager should be devoting most of their time?
I think if there's one channel that you want to absolutely nail, it's LinkedIn. I think that there's going to be a lot of talk about TikTok and Instagram. Those are still great channels, but I think that LinkedIn is the last great social media network or platform, because it doesn't corner you into a single form of creativity. It doesn't corner you to a single medium, and you don't have to dance if you don't want to. You don't have to do videos if you don't want to. If you express yourself better in text, great, do that, right? And I think for a lot of businesses, for that are so naturally gravitating towards white papers and blogs, that's a great place to extend your
Distribute.
reach
Yeah.
and distribute that content, recontextualize it so it becomes meaningful every single time you show up on people's feeds. So I think that aside from the flexibility of the creative that you can use, I also think that there's still you're still able to get more reach from LinkedIn than, let's say, Facebook's pretty much dead. Let's be honest in terms of organic reach. But but in terms of LinkedIn brand building organically, that's a great place to do it, because they're still rewarding engaging content with further reach outside of your own network.
I will say that to touch on the point of Facebook organic being pretty much a cemetery. I think that for the most part it is, especially you got to consider how busy that feed is now, right? Because what all the algorithm on Facebook or Meta is trying to do is put things in front of you that you care most about. And now you think about an organic post on social from a fan page or a business page, you're now competing not just with friends of those people you're trying to get in front of, you're competing with the groups that are getting in front of those people you want to get in front of, but you're also competing with the actual paid ads that people are paying for to get in front of those people that you want to get in front of. So it's just a very busy, it's a very busy place and not a lot of real estate available, which results in low organic reach. However, if we're going to talk about Facebook for B2B just for a second, the big benefit is that it's the biggest audience in the world. The biggest pool of people are on Facebook and Instagram. Okay. But the mindset that they're in might not be in the mindset of taking actions that are relevant or going to progress their business like they would be on LinkedIn. When you go on LinkedIn, you're in business mode. You're not in like casual hanging out 11 o'clock lying beside your wife or husband in bed mode. You know what I mean? It's a different mindset that you're in. So when you're on Facebook or Instagram, it's almost like you want to use those platforms as a B2B to get people off of those platforms into a place like email, or get them over to following you on LinkedIn from there. So when they're in that mindset of business, they can take those actions you want them to take. Right.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's kind of like going to movie cinema, and like, you could be in the mood for comedy or you can be in the mood for documentary, but you got to be in the mood for the right thing, right?
100%, definitely. So talking about, LinkedIn has done a lot recently in terms of evolving and offering certain placements where people can distribute content. Maybe explore that a little bit, Anthony, and tell us some of the areas on LinkedIn where you see more content being published.
That's interesting. I think that here's the thing, right? And this is coming from my experience from, I've been doing social media for like 12 years now, 13, something like that. I'm old. But
Hey, you know what? No,
I,
I think everybody out there has been doing social media for 13 years, right? Because everyone got Facebook in 2007.
yeah. And oh no, what was the question again? Try me again.
So talk to me about some of the actual spots within the LinkedIn platform where people can leverage to put out content. Obviously, there's LinkedIn articles, there's the feed, there's and there's something else that I think you're working on around blog activation in LinkedIn that maybe you want to talk a bit about.
Yeah, I think that, and this is from experience, again, from doing social media for all this time. And this happened on Twitter, this happened on Facebook, this happened on Instagram, with all these products and stuff like that that they've kind of released. The battle is always won on the feed, in my perspective. And the way to build brand, it's not to create one great piece of content and go, ta-da, we're good. It's to show up every time and regularly, and every time you show up you have something to offer, right? And so when the battle is won on the feed, when they scroll and they see your brand and you go, that's pretty cool. Next day they come on again and they see your brand again, you got something else different to say, but also interesting. That's where you start building the trust. That's where you start building your brand affinity. So for me, the feed is the most important thing. And within the feed, there's different ways to do creative. There's videos, there's carousels, which I heard that or saw that proper carousels are being killed off on LinkedIn, but that's fine. We still got the PDF ones, which is way better anyways. So we can still do our carousels, we can still do image posts, and we can still link posts. So those are very different ways of creating content. And I think that um, you shouldn't feel like you need to fixate on a certain way of creating content. What you should fixate on is what your story is, and what medium tells the story best, because you've got 2 seconds at most to get the people's attention. And that means that your first 2 lines of text on your caption needs to be spot on to let them know what the value is. That means the image and your first 2 seconds of your video needs to set up the context of what they're about to see. And that's way more important than trying to think of, oh, I need like 1,000 videos this month. Because yeah, there's so many of us that kind of, I think, fall into that trap where we read something somewhere and they say, oh, we need to do videos. Videos are wonderful, videos are great, but also at the same time, does your piece of content have is that the most natural form of creative, so that it expresses it best, right? So yeah, so you were talking about what I'm working on, which I called the LinkedIn blog activator, because everything needs a name. But the service I'm providing now is that you give me all your blogs as a B2B business, and I'll just turn that into a month's worth of LinkedIn content for you. I think a lot of times we look at, as marketers, we look at blogs and we go, oh, one blog equals one post. We just have to talk something about it and we have to push it and our job is done. But when I see blog posts, I see 2-3 posts that we can do, that's engaging. There's little short stories within this big long narrative that you got. And you can highlight those to bring these kind of interesting nuggets to get people's attention to read the full story. Because again, you've got about 2 seconds to get their attention. And if you can use those 2 seconds to give them something that's go, huh, that was interesting, that's going to be way more valuable than them skipping your post completely.
I think that's an excellent point, excellent idea and inspiration for anybody looking for additional pieces of LinkedIn content out there, is grabbing an existing blog post and turning that into 5 to 10 pieces of content. Like an example would be, 5 ways to properly sod a lawn for a landscape company. That blog is sitting there existing on the website. Well, those 5 ways are 5 different pieces of content for LinkedIn, right? Now,
Absolutely.
Anthony, would you, through each of those 5 pieces of content, would you link back to the original article or blog through those pieces of content, or is it just like those standalone pieces of content, no link back to a blog?
I think it depends. Jay, you know me. I like to joke, so I always look for the punchline. If the link ruins the punchline, then I skip the link.
Yeah.
But it's about intent, because if every post that you do has a link back to a blog, people can smell that and go, oh, okay, you just really want me to read the blog. But if there's a short piece there that all you got to do is just drop, let's say a infographic that tells the story really well, and that lands the sentiment really well, maybe you don't need a link back. I think that again, it depends on the narrative. It's really hard to say, but I would say that don't be shy to put the link back, because ultimately that's where a big chunk of that value also sits, right? If you think this is interesting, wait till you see all that other stuff, right? That's what we're really trying to say. So linking it back from time to time is not a bad idea at all, but also don't overdo it, because then it starts becoming like obvious that you're not really interested in telling them a story. You're actually more interested in them just hitting the blog.
Right. So each of those, let's say those 5 posts that you're creating from that blog article, are you connecting video, images to those pieces of content, hashtags? Explain how that post looks.
Ooh, that's interesting. So say you do have, let's go back to your lawn guys example. 5 ways of, what was it?
Five tips on sodding a lawn in 2023, let's say. There you go. You don't have many lawns in London. I don't think you have a lot of lawns in London over there. Do you have a lawn?
We don't have rain this year. So we had a lawn here, it's not going to exist.
True.
But say you have there's immediately I feel like there's a few posts I can do, right? So the first one I would do is possibly a launch post, right? Just go, hey, we got this. We just wrote the 5 ways of soldering a lawn, right? And you do a carousel so that it breaks down the 5 ways really quickly. Like treat a carousel as a comic strip. Like how much text is in comic strip? Not that much, but the purpose of each panel is just to get you to the next panel, so that becomes the narrative overall. So treat it as a comic strip. Do quick fire, like this is what you're going to get in the post, and click here. Great, that's wonderful. Then for the next post, take one of those 5 ways that is meteor, and create an image from that, and write 2 paragraphs on what that one of those ways are. Link back to the post. Third, we could do a video. If there's a video already in the blog post, use that possibly, or re-record the video so that it feels like a purposeful piece of video. What I do with webinar video is that I look for really interesting things that are said within the webinar. But then I take it, and that interesting thing might have taken 3 minutes to articulate. I would chop that up so that it becomes something articulate within 30 seconds. And then I would script something for my client or myself to record, so that I'm speaking directly to camera and I'm introducing the context of the piece of content you're about to see. So I don't know how to sod lawns. Again, I don't have a lawn. Maybe that's why I moved here, because I don't have to, like, bother with lawns, or don't have to mow the lawn, don't have to shovel the snow. But
lawn maintenance can be overrated, I think. 100%. Wasting
you
a lot
heard
of
it here
water.
first.
A lot of water being wasted, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, that's you could need a bit of recontextualizing that piece of content that would work really well on the blog to illustrate a certain point, but throwing it up there on its own might not get the same results. So so think about that as well as you do that. So that's 3 pieces already. I think that's off the top of my head without knowing how to sod a lot at all. So
no, that you nailed it, crushed it. That was great. So Anthony, if our audience has any questions for you or wants to learn more about the blog activator, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Just hit me up on LinkedIn, where it's gonna appear here. I don't know if that's gonna.
Yeah, it'll appear in the show notes for episode 192. So go on over to merge.ca/podcast/192 and you can get all the deets for Anthony.
Or you can just search for Mean Right Hook. Mean, MEAN, right being WRITE, and hook being hook. But
I see what you did there. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
it's from a love of Georges St. Pierre and a good pun. So
nice, awesome. Well, that might be the answer to our next question. We'll see, because this is the last question and the question we end every episode with. If you could choose one person, dead or alive, to represent Mean Right Hook, who would it be and why?
Well, you didn't. You just sprung that one on me, man.
Your fault, buddy. You'll be on your toes.
I'll tell you who I think would really represent well. Steve Carell. I love Steve Carell. He is funny, but he's also thoughtful. He uses humor when he needs to, but when he doesn't need to, he can bring it home with his drama. And I appreciate him so much as an artist because of this. And I feel like Mean Right Hook offers the same thing, where I love joking, I love making people laugh, but at the same time, what Mean Right Hook brings to the table isn't just the laughter. It's actual results. It's something that's it's serious. This is our business. This is our livelihood. We need it to work. We need to win. So I think Steve Carell's a good choice.
You heard it here first, folks. Steve Carell's character from The Office would be the brand ambassador for Anthony's company, Mean Right Hook. No, it's funny. You went from Georges St. Pierre, which I thought you were going to go with Georges St. Pierre, to Steve Carell. But I'll go with that. I love it. It's awesome.
So I really should have picked the Canadian, but awesome. Rick the Temp. I got a throwback for that one.
That's it, Rick the Temp. That's awesome. Anthony, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Jay, it's amazing. Thank you.
and we